Comunicar. Aprender. Romper barreras. Conectar con otros mundos y otras culturas. Expresar. Transformarte. Saltar obstáculos y creencias que nos limitan. Cuestionarnos. Disfrutar la vida. Sentir. Busquemos juntos nuevas posibilidades que nunca habíamos imaginado y encontremos la fuerza, el amor y el poder de la inspiración. Hola, bienvenidos a Inspírame Hoy. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos un día más. Y hoy estoy muy honrada de tener conmigo a Rebecca Roberts. Es un día muy especial para mí. Esta entrevista va a ser en inglés, entonces quédense conmigo. No importa si mi inglés no es tan bueno como creen, pero el contenido va a ser muy especial y está hecho con muchísimo amor. Así que, Rebecca Roberts, welcome to Inspírame Hoy.
Thank you so much. It makes me so happy to be here together with you.
And I'm so grateful that you're here and so happy that we are here together.
Exactly. We get to enjoy this time together, and thank you to your audience for flexing their English muscles.
I will try to be very specific on my subtitles, so let's see if it works. So anyway, Rebecca Roberts, for the people who doesn't know you, they have to know you. So she's a mindset coach and a storyteller consultant, which is what brings us here today. So tell me a little bit more about Rebecca Roberts. Who's Rebecca Roberts?
Well, that's a big question, right? So maybe I just take one little part of that. But yeah, I think on this topic, right, the topic of storytelling and where we intertwine and where we overlap is this aspect of how we inspire our own action with our stories, with the ones that we tell ourselves inside of our own minds. That's where the mindset and the storytelling come together for me, is the story weaving. So how we weave together the stories that we tell about ourselves and about the world around us, and then how we communicate that out with how we choose our words and how we express with our bodies and our language and our energy. And this is something that I think since I was young, I've always been very expressive. That was something that was just a part of growing up for me. But I also, this deep level of connection and what it means, you know, there are so many people that are speaking about these topics right now of belonging and what it means to feel seen and understood. And I think over the years, what I've realized is the way that we communicate, the way that we connect with other people has such a big influence on how we experience our lives, whether we feel that we belong to this world, whether we feel deeply fulfilled, and also that we're enjoying this life. And so I think that's why we connect as well with that, because it goes directly into how am I inspired in this lifetime.
So you are an architect, but how, what made you make this big leap from being an architect to being an inner architect?
So yes, so my background is actually in interior architecture. And for so long, I was working a lot with companies on how can we make their space create and support their culture. And I'm sure, I think many folks know that companies like Google have very fun, playful work environments, right? I mean, they have slides that go down from upper floors into the reception area. They have game rooms and things like this. And for a long time, I would have clients coming and saying, we want our offices to be like Google. And we would always laugh. And I mean, it came so often that finally I started to just have almost a speech prepared to say, well, the space can support your culture, but the culture comes from the people, right? So we
Right.
could make the most fun space ever. We could have game rooms and 10 places for each employee to work from. But if you have your managers saying that, you know, it's 8:30 and an ass needs to be in this seat at 8:30, otherwise I don't count it as that you're working. It doesn't matter how cool the space is, the culture has to align first, and that comes from each of the individuals.
And it won't make sense.
Exactly. And so what I started realizing was how integral our stories are. You know, we're the same. We have this idea, so many of us, because all of society talks about this, that when you have the right house, when you live in the right place, when you have a certain amount of money, when you have this partner, when you have X number of children, the check boxes are different for all of us. But when we finally check each of those boxes, then I'll feel fulfilled. Then I'll be satisfied. And how many of my clients and the teams that I work with talk exactly about this? I've checked all the boxes. I have everything that I thought that I wanted. And
what's next?
And something's still missing. Now what? And so it started me on this big search for understanding more of this as well. I had the exact same checkbox conundrum, the same checkbox problem. Was I had everything on the outside that seemed perfect and right, and yet something still felt missing. And so in my own exploration and search for this, I started realizing how much I was looking to the outside world to solve things and fulfill me and bring happiness and inspiration. And it wasn't until I started flipping the lens inside that all of a sudden I started realizing, okay, it's what's going on inside of my mind and my emotions and this body that are actually shaping how I experience life. So that's what started the journey.
That's what started your journey. Yeah, right. So about this subject that brings us here, that is a story, how important is to tell our stories to other people to inspire them, or how important is to hear other people's stories too, to inspire ourselves.
Yes. You know,
it's a balance, right?
It is. You're absolutely right. Because if we only are consuming stories, but we're never sharing our own, we're missing part of that beautiful connection, because it's a one-way river, right? It's flowing in one direction, but we're never having the chance to be seen and heard and understood. And vice versa, right? If I'm only ever speaking, but not listening, then I'm also missing so much of the possible inspiration and richness that exists all around me. And so it is this balance. You know, you can't have a great storyteller without the capacity to listen, because the first thing is the stories come from our lives and come from all around us, which means that first we have to listen and take them in before we can ever share them. And so I love that deep understanding that to be able to listen actively and with deep curiosity is such a key part, not only to be a great storyteller, but then also to be a great connector, is to listen to each other's stories and allow us to inspire and be inspired.
Of course, and it doesn't matter if you want to share actually your story out loud. It doesn't matter, because you're going to share your story either if you are a businessman, or either if you are a presenter, or either if you just need it to connect. You just need that to connect with people, with other people.
Yes, absolutely. Do you know, I had a conversation with a client this morning, and he was asking, you know, how is it that that some people just seem so interesting and others seem like they don't have many stories? He said, like, for me, you know, I don't think that I have that many stories. And I so often come back to this point, is that the most interesting storytellers are the ones that find life around them and their own lives interesting. Not necessarily the ones that have been, to every different country and climbed the highest mountain and swam the deepest sea.
Like a lot of adventures.
Exactly. But the ones who are capable of seeing intense beauty and incredible stories in the smallest moments of daily life. Yes. And this is something that I love the most about the work that I do, is helping people to begin to see themselves and their lives as interesting and inspiring, because it doesn't need to be this grand gestures all the time, but that sometimes it's on a walk or in the coffee shop or in a conversation that you have with your child or your partner, that in these moments, sometimes the full richness of life is expressed in just these small, beautiful moments. And this is something that I really love.
Probably we just have to look inside ourselves, like very deep, and probably what we've learned during our life and what made us grow, that's a great story. Like you said, we don't need to have a lot of adventures, because every piece of our life is a story.
Yes, absolutely.
And isn't it difficult to make this difference between our real story to the story that we're telling ourselves? Because probably that's the difficult part.
It's an interesting question, because I believe that there is no real story, right? There are the facts, but everything beyond the facts is our interpretation. And this is something that I call storytelling voodoo, because I can take a story from when I was young that for years and years and years has been a painful story or a difficult story or embarrassing. And if I look at that same story with fresh eyes, and I see actually how that story helped me grow and learn new lessons, and it shaped who I am, even years later, that story is now completely different. It's completely transformed. And I've gone back and I've changed my history. I've changed my identity, just simply by the way that I'm framing my stories.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't see it like that.
Yeah. And so it's one of the biggest gifts that we have, and that so many of us don't recognize, is that our identity is not set in stone. Yes, we each have our own preferences and things that drive us and excite us that are unique to us. But how we choose to express those drivers, those values, we have infinite ways that we can do that. And that's where our stories matter, because the stories that I tell about myself inside of my own mind open or close doors. They make me believe what's possible or what's not. They have me taking chances or not based on who I believe that I am. And the moment that it starts to really register that who I believe I am is also shaped by me, man, this is when life starts to open up, and we recognize I can find new inspiration and new excitement everywhere.
That was beautiful what you said, because it's the truth. I mean, I was thinking about it when you were saying it, and it is true. Like, probably I lived something years ago, and it was a story. It probably was a sad story. But now that I grow in different ways, now probably it's not that sad, my story. So it will be different the way I'm gonna tell the story. And so it is important to be, I think every one of us are storytellers, right? And it's a 100%. Great way to find our voice also.
Yes. And even beyond, like, even if I take away the actual speaking part, the way that we choose to weave the stories inside of our minds affects everything. It affects how we relate to other people. It affects how we choose to do our jobs and how we see life around us. Is this a hostile, scary place to be? Or is it a beautiful place to be? And all of these possibilities exist. I can remember in 2008, when there was this huge crisis, right? This huge financial crisis.
Yes.
I worked for a company that unfortunately they had to let a lot of people go. And I can remember it was really interesting. I had two colleagues, and one of them, both had families, both had two kids and a partner. And I can remember speaking with one of the guys, and he made the comment, this is just the worst thing that's ever happened. Yes, I have some savings, but I just can't believe that this is happening to me. Understandable, right? Like, it was super tough. And I also remember the other fella, and he was in a very similar financial situation. He said, I have some savings. It's not like things are going to go downhill, but I've been waiting for an excuse to start my own catering company because I love to cook. And I don't think I ever would have done it on my own. But so now I really feel like this is my chance. Right. And it just goes to show in the moment. And I think actually the fellow who really struggled ended up getting a beautiful new job, loves the place that he was working, so he was able to eventually look back and have gratitude for that moment. But in that moment, it was beautiful just to see the two stories side by side. For one, it was one of the worst days of his life. And the same thing for another was a moment of freedom and liberation.
Yes. Yes, that's what happened to all of us during the pandemic, though. Yes. Right? But also the story we tell ourselves is very important, because probably the one that says it wasn't a good time for him, probably he changed his story in his mind or tried to see the positive on that thing. Probably it will change his life at that moment.
Absolutely.
So it is important, the story we tell ourselves too.
Totally. And this is something I think this is always important to mention, is that sometimes people think, you're just, you just want to stick a happy face on everything and pretend that nothing is bad. But I really want to be clear on this, is that everything in life has a full spectrum of possible interpretations. Right? From, oh my gosh, this is one of the worst things that's ever happened to me, to this can be the moment that my entire life changes for the better, right? That full spectrum exists all the time. And I'm not saying that we should deny that it's difficult. Like, of course, I think if we ask everybody around us, I think very few people would say, oh, I would love to be fired from my job, right? Of course not.
Yeah.
But to acknowledge and to say, okay, this is really tough. It's hard. And of course, it's not what I would have chosen. But where do I choose to focus my energy and my attention? Because what we focus our attention on grows. It gets bigger in our perception. And if all I can focus on is how horrible this situation is, the possibilities and the opportunities that I see around me drastically narrow down. Whereas if I'm looking for how this might benefit me, acknowledging, yes, I wouldn't have chosen it, but I'm here now, like this is my reality. So what can I do with it? Then we open up. It's like, a horse, we goes from having the blinders on here to opening up, and all of a sudden what seems like one possibility in front of us turns into
a whole of possibilities.
So many, exactly. And now all of a sudden I recognize, I could go this way, or I could go this way. I could try this out. I could experiment. I could change a lot of things, actually. Or I can decide what I want to do next, instead of feeling trapped in one way. And this is what, when we make decisions from a place of gratitude and openness and possibility, we all know that, right? To make a decision when we're stressed and overwhelmed and frustrated, we generally don't make the best decisions. But when we feel light and relaxed, then we feel like, okay, there's a lot more choices for me.
Yeah, you're right. So something I learned with you was that we don't learn to be a storytellers. Like we're all storytellers already. We are. It's just that we don't recognize ourselves like that. But the other day I was in this meeting. It wasn't a meeting. It was like a party with some friends, and they were talking about this Inspírame Hoy, my show, my program. And I remember one of those girls, she was saying, "Oh, I could never be there with you because I don't have anything to say." And I was like, "No, you're wrong. Like every one of us has something to say or something to share. And you never know who you're going to inspire with something you said that probably you just say it like that. You didn't mean to inspire, but you did. So it is so important to inspire.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And that goes back to this point, right? That sometimes we expect that our life is, if it's going to be inspirational, it needs to be grand, right? There needs to be rockets and fireworks happening all over the place all the time. But one thing that I work with a lot of my clients and students on is, how can I see the extraordinary in the ordinary little moments? You know, like I played with a client this morning with objects that were just around.
Uh-huh.
And I said, you know, we can make a story out of anything. And so this is a converter, right?
Right.
And I said, so what can we learn from this? And he was like, okay, well, yes, you know, I see the 3 prongs, so it's Swiss. I said, yes, okay. But so why would I need a Swiss converter? He said, well, maybe because you have things that don't work with a Swiss plug. I said, yes, exactly. Okay, so what are some of the stories that come from just this object, right? And so we started talking about it, and I said, you know, sometimes we make changes in our lives. For example, when I moved from the US to Switzerland, I had certain things that were really important to me, but they weren't going to work in the same way as they did when I lived in the US. They had a different plug. And so some things I had to make tough decisions on and get rid of something old and learn something new or find something new. But other things I thought, no, there's got to be a way to transform this into something else, into something that I can use. And we do the same thing, right? There are times when we are transitioning into a new project or a new role, or maybe we're becoming parents or finding a new partner. And there are things about us that are beautiful and wonderful, but they have to go through a little bit of a transformation.
Yes.
And so sometimes we need to learn a new skill or something that allows the old to fit with the new.
Yeah.
And so he was saying, like, how do you get that from a plug?
That's what I was thinking about too. Wow.
But this is an exercise, right? Because I used to not be able to do this. But it's an exercise that I do with a lot of my students. I say, you know, each day, find an object and tell 4 stories that are meaningful about that object from your life, or as an analogy, or something like this, you know, a piece of string. What does this do? You know, it has the chance to tie things together, or to act as a bridge, you know, for ants, or whatever it might be, right? But it's also about inspiring curiosity and playfulness.
Being aware of what's going on around you, right? Yeah, you're right. So that's a beautiful thing that you said, because even with nature, it can inspire us a lot, but we're not aware, we're not looking. And now that you're saying that you are aware, because it's your job, and also you have that talent to be aware of what's going on around you. I think that awareness is going to make us even more happier than we are, if we are happy.
Absolutely. Because it is, right? It reminds us that there's so much beauty in even the smallest little moments. Like we were talking a couple of weeks ago about you walking out, you know, out into your backyard and walking around the water.
Connecting with everything, yeah.
Exactly. And when we take a moment. I mean, this is why great storytellers are great listeners. They're also great observers. And it's not something that's magical, that's only for a few people, like you mentioned before. Anyone can become an observer of life. It just takes us slowing down a little bit and taking a moment to notice like how amazing life is around us, and what do we see, and what lessons is life constantly teaching us.
So do you think this could take us time, or it will take me time to be a great storyteller? Because for the people who doesn't follow you, they have to follow you, because like you said, you make a story from anything and you connect the words very easy. Like I love to see when you talk, because you start with an example that I'm always, at the beginning, I'm always thinking, where is she going? And then I said, wow, she really connect this to this. How did she do that?
Yeah.
And
Do you
you
know?
said everything in a few minutes.
Yeah. But this is it, right? I wasn't always able to do it this quickly, but it's just like fitness, right? It's a muscle. And one of the greatest things is shifting that idea that we have of ourselves is the moment we begin to think of ourselves as a storyteller, right? Because a storyteller is looking around life for how to make this a story that they can share in a meaningful way with someone, right? And it actually is even doubly interesting, because if I'm thinking, okay, so I am, I'm perhaps, this happened the other day. I was in line for a coffee, and I hear the conversation of the two people that are in front of me, and they're having a funny conversation, and they're speaking about the weather. And I'm just listening, and I'm thinking, oh, isn't it funny that we always have the same conversation about spring? Spring weather is crazy. One day it's hot, the next day it's cold, it's raining, it's snowing, it can't make up its mind. And I just had the thought, listening as a storyteller, what can I get out of this? How much, what just registered with me is how much we're on loops. This time every year, this conversation happens everywhere.
Everywhere. And
And
every
so,
year.
and every year, again and again and again, and so, but then I thought, because I'm part of the story, and the people were very playful, right? So they were also looking back at me, so I wasn't interrupting a conversation, but I made the comment, and isn't it funny that every year we have the same conversation, and we always seem surprised that the spring is crazy like it is. And they start laughing, and the barista says, yes, but it's interesting, because the coffees are changing, and and I was just taking in all of this and recognizing this is how we connect and communicate, through the stories that we tell about nature, through the stories, how we interact. But as a storyteller, I'm registering this and thinking, well, what can I get out of this story? And so I just start asking them questions, and I'm looking for more information. And this is that curiosity, right? When I think of myself as a storyteller, I'm looking for, how is life giving me stories to work with in every situation?
Yeah, every day and every moment. So, okay,
Yeah.
so this is a big question for you. So
Yes.
every one of us are storytellers, everyone, right? And we needed to connect, like we said, and to build trust with other people. But if I want to be a storyteller, like a professional storyteller, let's say I want to write a book, or I want to tell my story in a conference room, or here at YouTube, or in this, TV, whatever, like a professional storyteller, right? Like not a professional, like to be a storyteller out loud.
Yes.
Is that good word to
Yeah,
say?
that's a perfect way of saying it. Yes.
Okay, if I wanna do it out loud, what do I need? Isn't it difficult to disconnect your emotions to your when you're speaking, like you're telling your story, and it's not difficult to disconnect your emotions so you won't cry or you won't get angry every time you tell the story again?
Okay, such a good question. I think it's the saddest thing that we could do to completely disconnect our emotions, because this is how we connect, right? We love to think of ourselves as very logical creatures, but we are emotional creatures that then layer on logic.
Yes.
But you're absolutely right. If I want to share a story that's very moving and intimate for me, very difficult, and I plan to do this in front of a large audience, there's a certain, we call it bandwidth, right? So a certain intensity that we can feel with other people, and then a certain intensity that makes us uncomfortable. So let's say if I wanted to talk about, if I'm reflecting back on when my grandfather passed away, right? And that is still very, very, very emotional for me. And I am up on stage and I spend 5 minutes of a 20-minute talk sobbing. That's going to be too much for an audience to handle, right? Understandably so.
Yes.
But that is where I can take on the responsibility to say, okay, if I want to share this story, I need to share it enough so that I can hold those emotions, but not take them away. Because when we see somebody who is feeling deeply moved by something, we can connect with that because we experience that as well. And so if I can be up on stage and sharing about my grandfather and a tear falls down and I need to take one moment to breathe, everyone in the audience can still stay with me. And so then that's my responsibility as a storyteller to take those moments and to decide, okay, I'm going to share this story with a few people. I'm going to talk with my partner or my children or some good friends so that I can get out a little bit of that intensity, but that I can still be able to share with emotion. And it also might mean that if we're in an interview situation and somebody asks me a question and I think about this story, but I recognize it's a little too emotionally charged, then I might not share that story in that moment. Okay. I might choose a different story. But our emotions are our greatest assets because this is how we connect. We connect through our humanness, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're right. With emotions, we connect through our emotions. So we do need to follow steps. So let's say I want to do it out loud. Like I said, probably it's not the right word, but I want to do it out loud. I want to do it. I want to share with more people, not with my friends, with more people. That's when we're going to need you. That's when we're going to need our storytelling consultant, which is going to be Rebecca Roberts. So Rebecca will teach us how to do it. Like probably it's not like step by step, but it does need a structure if we're going to do it like that, right?
Exactly. So the way that I work with people a lot of times is on three main pillars, right? So one is our mindset. What are the stories that we're weaving inside of our own head? Do I even believe that I can be a storyteller? What drives me? What are my values? What do I care about, right? And why am I doing this? The second is self-leadership, or like that I have a vision. I have a reason why I want to share. Because just sharing to share, I mean, we've all experienced that, right? When somebody just likes to hear themselves talk, it gets old really fast, right? Because they're just talking to talk about themselves.
And actually, there's a lot of influencers like that right now. A lot of them, like, I'm eating, you know, everything I'm doing, they just want to share. They just want to share. But it's, like you said, they don't have
a vision, a reason.
Vision of what they want. Exactly.
Exactly. But on the flip side, you really feel that. Like I saw the other day, there's this lovely woman who shares her experience. She's got, alopecia. So she has no hair.
Okay.
And so she's talking always about the different tactics that she uses, how she puts on her wigs and how she does her eyebrows. And when she's experimenting with something, she's sharing a lot about herself. But the comments that you see below coming from other men and women with the same condition, they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing how you're doing all of this, because it makes me feel first, like I can show my bald head without feeling crazy. And second, like I see that there are ways to feel beautiful and to feel exciting without this, right? So she's talking a lot about herself, but because she wants other people with the same condition to not hide away, but to feel beautiful and excited about their lives.
That was her goal, right?
Exactly. And you can feel it in the way, because it's not just look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me.
She
But
had
the camera's
something
pointed.
to actually say. Okay.
Yes. So there's the mindset, there's the vision, and then the really tangible, practical skills. This is where we learn about how our body moves. We learn about how our voice is our greatest instrument, right? We learn about volume and how I can talk loud and really project. And then to make a really deep point, I can talk more softly, because it makes us naturally, as storytelling absorbers, yes, we want to lean in a little closer, you know, they're talking softly. This is a really important moment. Or we turn the pace faster or slower. We have more melody, or we talk more monotone for a period of time to show that it's really, you know, important. These are all things that are very step-by-step. They're practice and practical type things, but they all play in together to allow us to make meaningful communication and tell meaningful stories, not just to hear ourselves talk.
Yeah, you're right. Even the way you move, the way you put everything, the way everything is around you at the same time you're speaking, like everything is important, right? Yes. So yes. I'm gonna leave all your social media here, because I do think most of the people are gonna need someone like you, because it's not easy to be in front of a camera, and it takes a lot of responsibility too.
Yes.
To talk to people.
Absolutely. And this is part of it, right? That desire and that drive is the biggest missing piece, right? Once we have that desire and that drive to connect, everything else can flow from there. And it's all just about giving ourselves a chance to play with it and to learn and be a little bit courageous, to step outside of our comfort zone. And then all of a sudden, the rewards that start coming back from that capacity to connect, it's addictive. Then we want more.
More. And like you said, probably this girl, like the alopecia girl, probably she wanted to make something meaningful to everybody that has the same problem, but also she's been inspired for all the people that's writing to her and sharing their own stories with her.
Yes.
So yeah, it is like a back and forward, right?
Well, and this is it, is that of course nothing is ever just for other people. We of course need to follow our own drivers and desires, and that gives us the energy and the power to connect with others, right? There is no such thing as purely altruistic, purely giving to someone else without getting anything back, even if we tell ourselves that in our minds, because the joy of giving might be our reward. But we do that because it feels good, because it feels meaningful. And so that's it, to honor the fact that we have that desire, and to honor the fact that we get to invest our time and energy into other people that we care about and love.
Yeah, you're right. It's like I was just remembering now that you were talking the day we met. It's just like the way you and me meet, right? It's just
Yes.
we were in this happiness fest, and
Yes.
you were talking about, I don't remember the subject, but
I think it was talking about belonging, actually.
belonging, exactly.
Yes.
And then I don't know why, but I went to your conference room.
Yes.
And it was just like a connection, and you inspire me so much. And then I remember we went into the meeting. I don't remember if it was like you and me looking at each other. It was just like chat. I don't remember, but we connect.
Yeah, I think it was both, because I think we opened up the video also for a little while, which was so nice to get to see faces and interact. So yes.
And it's just like that. You inspire me so much. And then through the years, because it's been, I think that was like 2 or 3 or 4 years ago.
I think so, yeah.
And here we are, and you inspire me so much. And now you are giving me this gift to talk to the people, and this confidence to talk to people. And it's amazing how we connect, telling our stories, right?
Same. And this as well, I love how our values meld, because you're focused so much in this beautiful aspect of inspiration, right? And this is, inspiration is where our action comes from. And for me, that's also such a beautiful reminder to really step into that and say, how am I inspired today? How can I inspire others? How do we play with these things? And so I also love that in our conversations, we inspire each other.
Yes, totally. So there you are. We have to connect. We have to inspire. You never know who you're going to inspire with your actions or with your words. And so I have to say this today, and any other day, you inspire me so much. Today you were my inspiration, as usual. And so yeah, I really want to tell the people to see you and to follow you, because you are a great inspiration. And if you're thinking about being a storyteller out loud, I think there has to be a word for that.
Yeah, I think it's more like just choosing to express that, but I like your way. I like saying the storytelling out loud.
Out loud.
Because of course we're storytelling all the time, right?
Yes,
we have conversations with our bosses, and we need to explain why we're doing what we're doing, or we're telling a partner why I think we should do this vacation instead of that vacation, right? We're telling stories with all of this. And so then it's just, am I trying to communicate in a way that conveys what I truly am feeling and meaning in this moment? And sometimes we want to do that up on a stage, and sometimes that happens between friends.
Between friends, and you help me to have this confidence in me, because it is difficult to have the confidence to speak. So thank you for that. I'm so grateful to have you here. You really inspire me so much. And I hope I know that you're going to inspire a lot of people now. So I'm going to put all your social media here and down here. And really, really, I'm so grateful. Very, very grateful, Rebecca.
Me too. It has been so beautiful to share the space with you. I love you. I love you. I love you.
And you pushed me to do this, because in English it's very difficult. It's not my main language.
But I know you are a brave woman. You are a brave woman, right? So these are also, right? This is the way we step out and we play, and we find beautiful spaces to expand together.
Together, but you're not leaving. We have the 5 Inspírame Hoy questions that I do to everybody here. So here they are. Tell me 3 movies or 3 books, because some people don't read, but some people do, that have inspired you through your life.
Ooh, okay. One of them I have right here. The War of Art.
Oh, okay.
Perhaps one of my absolute favorites, because it's talking about creativity and how do we create with the fact that resistance exists, right? So how do we overcome resistance? It's a book that I read a lot because I feel a lot of resistance just it's always a little scary to stop and create something new. And so it's one of my favorites.
Okay.
I grew up watching Indiana Jones, and all of these different, action movies. And for me, those always inspired me because they were all about exploring the unknown. And I feel like I grew up thinking, yes, there's so much to be discovered, right? It sparked this wonder inside of my mind. And the third is probably, actually, it's a relatively new book, but it just won an Oscar for being turned into a movie. I think it's called The Boy, the Fox, the Horse, and the Mole, or it's some combination of these four. I'm sure I get it wrong every time, but I love it. It's such just sweet, beautiful, innocent story about courage, actually. And for anybody who wants to see it, oh my gosh, and it's by Charlie Mackey, I think is the illustrator and the writer of the book. And wow, it's so beautiful. So yes, I highly recommend.
Okay, great. So I love the way you see things. I just love it, because when you said Indiana Jones, because it's one of my favorite movies too, never seen the inspire thing there, So when you said, I was like, I want to see where she's going with this movie. That's a great thing to see, because you really see deeply.
Yeah.
Right. I love it. I love it. The unknowing. Cool. Yeah. Cool. So now tell me 3 habits of your daily life that keeps you inspired.
Okay. In the morning, I'm always either reading or listening to some kind of a podcast that is somehow inspiring me. So really, because I find that if I start my day with curiosity, then the rest of the day I'm looking for other ways that I can be inspired, and that I can find new excitement and energy. So this is something. One that is a work in progress is to drink more water.
Okay.
So this is good habit. This is one that I really work hard on, because I swear, I think somewhere inside of me, I think I'm a camel and I just don't need to drink. But I see as well that it has a huge impact on all of my health and my mental capacity as well.
Yes.
And the third is to sit down and reflect on the day. At the end of my day, to ask myself a few questions. What really was beautiful about today? What am I grateful for? What didn't I do today that I said I wanted to, that I could maybe do a little bit better tomorrow? And, what's one thing that I would like to remember about today? And it's just a little reflection exercise, but I find it to be incredibly helpful to be more intentional about my days.
Oh, great. I love that people share these habits with us, because probably you never know that it could become a habit for me, because I like the way you close your day. So that's a great habit. So now tell me, from which emotion, let's see if I say it right. From which emotion do you find inspiration?
Well,
the emotion that makes you be inspired.
Yes. So I think it's really interesting, because when I think about emotions, right, there are 2 that come to mind. Curiosity is the one that comes to mind first, because I find that just automatically comes up.
Yes.
But it's really interesting, because the other emotion that comes up is actually sadness.
Oh, really?
And I say that because when I feel a deep sadness, there's something in me that I feel comes forward and asks, what needs to happen now? How can I be with this? How can I hold space for this emotion? And somehow it inspires me to look with a lot more compassion at myself. Whereas in the past, sadness has always been one of those things that I tried to just swipe away. sadness has now become something that that inspires me to open up to myself with a lot of compassion. So it's an interesting one, but somehow I feel like that's worth mentioning.
Yeah, like both emotions are great. Curiosity for me, today I learned about that. Now, curiosity, yeah, because it's like a little kid. If you are curious, then you go deeper.
Oh, yes, totally.
So if you could color the inspiration, what color would you use?
Ooh, okay, I'll go intuitive. Like for me, it's kind of this like sunset orange, right? That ready orange, because it's got a lot of energy. It's somehow in a transition, because you see it in the sunrise and the sunset, right? In those moments when things are changing. I also feel like that's one of those colors that inspires you to pay attention, but it gives a lot of energy somehow. So for me, that feels like it would be a good inspiration color for me.
Great answer. Great answer. So last question. If inspiration were a person, who would it be?
Ooh. So interestingly enough, I saw something the other day, and I feel like I have to steal a little bit from him. A while back, Matthew McConaughey gave an acceptance speech where he was talking about who it was that inspires him. And he said, it's my future self. And I think more and more, for so long, I looked for people on the outside, as I want to be like them. And I want to think about, oh, if I'm like this person. But in the past months, I've been doing a lot of visioning where I'm looking at myself at 60 or 55, looking at myself in the future and letting her be the one who is helping guide me. And so I'm totally going to steal his thing. I think it's our future selves.
Great. Love that answer. Yeah, you're right. Our future selves, ourselves, like for me, I was my own inspiration. But you're right. Our future self has to be our inspiration, because that's where we're going, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully. So, Rebecca, today you were my inspiration. I learned that I want to be more curious from now on. That's what I learned today. And thank you very much for being here, for wanted to be here with me, share this little space with me. And I don't know, what do you want to say about connect our inspirations through our story?
I think we've played with it, but I love that you offer this platform, because I think, storytelling is just one more way to inspire people, right? And so I love that you created this space to explore with playing with how we find more inspiration. And yeah, I'm just grateful that we could have this discussion around that storytelling is one more way, right? That we can be inspired and inspire the world around us.
And it wouldn't be so selfish from me to not share this with everybody, to not share you, It will be selfish. So thank you. I'm very grateful that you shared this space with me, like I said. And I hope this is not our last.
Of course it's not. Absolutely.
Absolutely not. Please.
No.
Well,
many more to come.
I hope so too. So thank you very much, Rebecca.
My pleasure.
You. And I love you. Thank you.